Today I want to talk about bankruptcy. And that's a scary word for a lot of people. But I think it's a scary word because of the media and the banks, pretty much the people that you don't want to pay. And so bankruptcy is like the big scary B word. And it can be. It definitely can be. But I'm probably going to name this video like bankruptcy is the best thing I ever did type thing. And it has its advantages and disadvantages. So I'm just going to go through my experience with bankruptcy. And filing bankruptcy and how I got to that decision and all of that good stuff. So me and my wife were together at the time. We were boyfriend and girlfriend. We didn't really come from a lot of financial knowledge. So we didn't really have good money habits, to start with. So debt was like, it wasn't even a big deal. We were so bad at getting into like credit card debt, consumer debt. Like every time that I got a better job, that's when I would go open up a new credit card. So every time I knew I was going to make more money, I went to go open up more money. Like it didn't make sense whatsoever. There's no excuse for it. But anytime I got another job, I was getting paid more. I was like, basically I can afford more bills. And first of all, that's a terrible mistake. You should want to keep as much as you can out of your check, not, oh, I can afford this $1,000 thing because I'm only going to be paying $25 a month for it. Which in reality, once you hopefully finish paying for it, you've spent probably $1,500 because the money that you're paying every month, $25, that's going mostly to interest. And you're really putting about $10 a month toward that $1,000. And the rest is going to the institution that you borrowed money from. So, yeah. A lot of credit card debt, a lot of consumer debt, and I'm talking like I couldn't even tell you what we spent that money on. Most of it was like eating out. And like, if you think about how ridiculous that is, eating out on a credit card, you basically paid fake money that you're going to have interest on to eat something that will last in your stomach for about 3 hours. Maybe 4 if it's a big steak dinner. And then you're going to keep paying on that for years to come. Like that one moment in your life that satisfied you for just a little bit, you're going to be paying interest on that meal until you pay that debt off. And that's ridiculous. It doesn't even make any type of sense. So a lot of stuff. Like, I wish if I could go back and I made the same mistakes, I would have at least went into debt going to do experiences like going to basketball games or going to concerts or going to the mountains or something like that, but not just like eating out every day, buying some clothes here and there. So that was terrible. So we racked up about $40,000 between a bunch of different stuff in debt. $40,000 that I couldn't point to you one thing that we bought. Because every time I bought like a TV or something like that, I literally would always pay that right back off for some reason. But it was all the little stuff that added up. And $40,000, like, it's a lot. We actually had, between all the credit cards and the loans we had, we had $1,000 of minimum payments every month. $1,000. That's just every month. Not going toward things that we had already ate, going toward things we had already wore and broke, or can't even remember what it was. $1,000 a month, and things was tight. And I was making pretty decent money at Dish Network at the time. I think that last full year I was there, I made like $60,000, and I couldn't say that we really got to enjoy that at all, because we were paying $1,000 a month, which is $12,000 a year, just in minimum payments. Not like getting ahead of the curve. That's just to keep our credit from plummeting, basically. So I quit my job 2017. Meanwhile, still in all this debt, $40,000 of debt. Like, you just got you got these big aspirations. You just quit your job out of, nowhere, really. Because I started my business while I was working for somebody else at Dish Network. And I did maybe like 3 or 4 jobs. And I was like, man, I could make, X amount an hour. Why am I still at Dish Network? So I just literally quit. I wouldn't suggest doing that. I should have worked both for a while, got some clientele up. But hey, I know myself. I'm impulsive, and I just felt like that was the best thing to do at the time, because I felt like it was going to work out. So, and it has. 3 years later, I finally know, like, okay, this was the right decision. But so yeah, $40,000 in debt. And we're paying $1,000 a month in just minimum payments between credit cards and loans. And I quit my job. And the first spring and fall were great. And then winter hit. And if you don't have any existing clientele, not many people know your name. This industry stops for you then. That's where the train stops. And when the train stopped, I couldn't afford to keep paying $1,000 a month to debt. So we made the decision to stop paying it. And, things started going into collections. You started getting those phone calls like, hey, where's my money at? And, you're a slave to the lender. I mean, you borrowed the money. It's all on you. I can't blame nobody else but myself, So, after going through all of that, we were like, what options do we have? Because I'm not bringing enough money to pay this $1,000 every month. So we had to stop paying. And so we were looking into filing bankruptcy. And that could be a scary thing because of what you hear from everybody about bankruptcy. It should be the last option, of course. But if you think about people like Dave Ramsey or whatever, he's so anti-bankruptcy, and he wants you to work 17 jobs to pay off that money. And I'm like, I really, I did it. I got into the debt. But honestly, I don't really feel like taking the next decade of my life trying to pay this money off. and that's just me being real about it. If there's a better, quicker way out, then I want to take that route. And for us, bankruptcy was that route, to kind of take back control of our finances in our life. So all the things, make a long story short, we hired a lawyer to handle our bankruptcy, and basically we paid the lawyer $2,000, and through a few months process, we wrote off $40,000 of debt. Now, we got to keep our house, we got to keep our cars, because they allow you to keep your necessities. Now, if we had, boats and ski jets and trailers and campers and all this stuff laying around our house that's worth money and that you don't need, then yes, that would have got taken into bankruptcy. But we just had the basic necessities. So we got to keep our house and our cars, and that's all we really had of value, honestly. Nothing else was worth enough to come get or confiscate or go toward, our balance towards some of these debts. So, yeah. So really, the only thing that messed up as far as the bankruptcy goes, once it finally finalized, our credit, of course, took a hit. And that's going to be on our credit for about 7 to 10 years. And, most people start getting, approved for stuff or get their credit right back in 2 years after your discharge date, which ours was this past almost a year ago now. So yeah, so we pretty much got a fresh start. We're basically in no debt. Besides like my truck, because my other car broke down, and unfortunately I had to go finance a truck. But I had to do a buy here, pay here, and the interest is really high because I can't get approved for, a good loan from somebody with a low interest rate. So that's the downfall as well, which I have a plan to pay this truck off really early so that I'm not paying $10,000 for a car that I picked off the lot for $8,000. Because if I went the length of the loan on the car, I would end up paying about $10,000-$11,000. That's how much interest is on there. If I pay it off early, I get to skip that interest and move on with my life. So bankruptcy was the best thing that we could have done in that situation. It's having its setbacks, as far as not being able to move if we wanted to move or get approved for certain things to like advance the business. We kind of have to do everything cash based. So whatever money I bring in, we got to be strategic. Like, okay, we're going to pay this bill. We're going to upgrade this piece of equipment. We got to keep the business running. And it's all done with cash because we don't have any credit right now. But for me, that's better to go through the struggles of like just starting fresh, like you're a teenager and you have no credit, than working for the next 5 years or more trying to pay off all that $40,000 of debt. I like the trade-off. I like the trade-off of in 5 to 10 years I'll be back to where I really, really want to be. Then 5 to 10 years I just paid off all this debt and now I have to start over. Like it would only really be just to salvage my credit score, which there's other ways around to getting stuff when you don't need a credit score, So that's my bankruptcy story. I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I think more people could benefit from it if they knew the ins and outs of it. I don't know everything to know there is about it, but I know it worked for me. It worked for me and my family and my situation. It was just stupid debt, stupid, young and dumb consumer debt. And if you're still making those decisions, like, it's not worth it. It will catch up to you. You're not going to be able to work, it's just not worth it. They're setting you up to pay them like forever. If you look at your credit card bill and it says, you could pay this amount off if you pay the minimum payment of X amount of dollars, $25, and you could pay that off in 35 years. Like, it'll literally tell you how many years it'll take if you just make the minimum payment to pay it off. And that's a lifetime to be paying on that steak dinner because you wanted to treat your wife and you really didn't have the money to. It's stupid. It really is when you think about it. But that's my bankruptcy story. We started fresh. The business is doing well. Like I said, we're cash based right now. We can't really afford to finance, a bigger, better machine or, equipment or whatnot. But hey, that's where we at. We made decisions in the past. I always say this, and I know I've heard it somewhere, so I can't quote it for myself. You can choose anything you want to do in life, okay? But you cannot choose the consequences. And there's good consequences from certain behavior, and there's bad consequences for certain behavior. So just remember that. And I try to tell myself that every day. Like, I could do this, but I can't choose what happens after this. And that's with everything. So, you got any questions about my bankruptcy? Let me know. Comment me. Private message me. It might be a good option for you. It might not. It might just be a warning to not get into stupid debt. Rule of thumb with debt, if it will not make you money, don't ever put it on debt. If it will make you money, put it on debt sometimes. You got to be very strategic about what you're putting on debt, credit cards, loans, whatever. If it's going to make you money back, like it's an investment, then yeah, you should do it sometimes. If it's not going to make you any money, then no, you shouldn't. At all. Ever. Because it will catch up to you. And you probably will never pay it off. It's just how it is.